My name is Oscar Alonso Campa. I'm 17 years old. I go to Salina South. I'm going to be a senior next year. When I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a bone cancer slash tumor in my left humerus. I was playing sports at the time, soccer and baseball, one practice after the other, games, soccer practice, training, camps. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was an everyday thing. Until one day, I felt my shoulder was worn out. Like it started hurting a lot. And I told my mom. It was one of my baseball games. I went in to go bunt. And I couldn't follow through with the bunt. And I was like this. I was halfway through the bunt until I dropped my bat in the middle of the pitch. My mom scheduled an appointment with my pediatrician, and that's when we went to go look at the x-rays, and it could have been three things: osteosarcoma, osteoporosis, and or just a fracture. It was kind of weird because right before the day he gave us the news, that was the day we were leaving to California for vacation. I was starting middle school, 6th grade. So before middle school started, I went to California. So it was kind of tough not knowing what it was before we went to California. And we wouldn't get the news or the information back until we got back. It was the second day of school where they said they were going to do a biopsy on my shoulder. And we did that in Kansas City, actually, with another doctor. His name was Dr. Rosenthal. And he wanted to do a biopsy because he wasn't sure what it was either. And that was on the second day of school when they limited me on my things I could do. Like, I couldn't play any sports. And I remember I was mad, too, because the second day of school, we were playing soccer, and I couldn't play. I was pretty mad. Because playing soccer at school was, like, havoc and everything. We went to Kansas City. I had a biopsy. I was kind of nervous because I was getting put to sleep. And, yeah. I've never been put to sleep for anything before. And I thought that was kind of scary, but they sedated me, put me under, and I remember waking up. What they didn't tell me was that I peed in my pants. I peed in my pants in the middle of the biopsy, which is gross. And one thing I forgot to bring was the extra pair of underwear. And yeah, I didn't have an underwear for the rest of the trip in Kansas City, and I guess it's called, I don't know what to call it. We went to the mall, no underwear, no underwear, free balling. It was kind of awkward to talk about it on here, but I trying to tell everything what happened. But yeah, I was in a sling for about 2 more weeks, and that's when they gave us the news that it was osteosarcoma. I didn't know what it was because that day, the 2 weeks prior to my surgery, I was with my cousin that day. It was a good day. We were getting out of school. It was like a Friday. And I remember that day, it was just so weird because my dad picked me up from school, and he looked like he had just been crying. Like he had tears in his eyes. And I didn't know what it was from. I just thought it was a normal day. Like he was like tired or something. And I remember he had tears in his eyes. And I was like, oh, I wonder what happened. It's weird. I didn't think anything of it, obviously, because I was having fun. I was just enjoying life. Until I went to my cousin's house, and I was at my cousin's house all evening. We were playing video games. We were playing Call of Duty, zombies. My mom picked me up, and she told me we were going to my grandma's house, and we were downstairs. And that was when she broke the news to me that I had cancer. And just right then and there, I broke down crying. My whole family was there. My uncles, my aunt, my grandma, my grandpa, my sister, brother, sister. They were all there. And it was just, I just couldn't believe it at the time. The first thing that came to my head was I was going to die. Because I didn't know, I never had anything like that before. And I just remember that day exactly, and she told me I had cancer and that I'd have to go through chemotherapy. And we came home. My mom posted about it on Facebook that I had cancer. I remember coming to school the next day. Everyone was like so sorry for me, and I just couldn't handle it. I was crying all day, all night. The next day after that, we had to go see a doctor right away, an oncologist, my first oncologist in Kansas City, and his name was Dr. Smith. When we first met them, they were really, really nice. They were nice people. They were gonna tell us what the plan was for the next 52 weeks, which was the 52 weeks I underwent chemotherapy. They also wanted to get started right away because the cancer I had was stage 3, which is pretty dangerous. One of the highest stages, 4 stages. Stage 3 is pretty high. And yeah, I had started chemotherapy literally a week after they told me I had cancer. And at first, I did not take it well. I was throwing up. I kept waking up at night. I had to get tested a lot. I had to pee in a cup, test my pH before I'd leave. And they had to do a lot of tests that day. I showed up at the hospital. First, a hearing test, because one of the chemos made my hearing bad. It was doxorubicin. It made me deaf. And now because of that, I have ringing in my ear constantly, and I have bad hearing. And the other one was methotrexate. It was I don't know what it was for exactly. I think it's for kidney something, but I remember they told me to drink a lot of water so I could leave. And yeah, when I got back to school, we had to make a plan for what was going to happen for the rest of the school year and for my homework and everything. And luckily, I was fortunate enough for my teachers to just pass me on all my classes because it'd be hard for me to do my work because I wouldn't be there to know what was going on. And yeah, that whole concept of having cancer just totally changed my life forever. Like, I remember when I was a kid, when I was younger, I was way younger. I would tell myself, I wonder if I would ever get cancer, or I would think I would never get cancer. And there I was with osteosarcoma in my left arm. That thought of having cancer was unbelievable. That's when they completely restricted me of sports. I was getting ready to start a new soccer team, McPherson, because my other team had split up, and I wasn't able to play soccer. When they told me I couldn't play soccer, I cried so much because I loved soccer so much. Not being able to play your favorite thing or do your favorite thing just makes things worse. The worst part, I think, was having to be away from your family for a certain period of time, because we'd have to travel all the way to Kansas City for about 2 weeks or a week and come back. But while you're at the hospital, your family can't see you. Only one person could come because they had to work, and your friends couldn't see you because they live all the way, like an hour and a half away, and that was pretty hard. And I remember I just text my friends all the time, but it wouldn't be the same as seeing them in person. And I remember I'd come home all the time, my friends visiting me, and just me having to stay home all the time, not being able to go out because I'd be sick. And I'd have to go to the hospital every morning to go get my blood checked. And I think it just made things a lot harder. When I had cancer, it was pretty easy. I wouldn't say easy, but just dealing with it. What I thought chemotherapy was pills at first. It was bags with like chemicals in them, colored chemicals. My first chemo was doxorubicin, and that one made me throw up all the time. But once the weeks passed, I learned how to get used to it, and it wouldn't affect me at all. It'd get pretty easy. I think the good part of being at the hospital was the nurses. The nurses were really cool. They'd always help me out, keep me positive. There was a playroom. I started learning how to play the guitar. The first day I arrived at the hospital, the nurse told me if I wanted to play Xbox. And I remember I said yes, Because I didn't want to talk to anybody until the playroom lady came and told me she had an Xbox. And I remember I'm like, can I play the Xbox? She said yes, of course. And I started playing Xbox right away. I think halfway through my weeks of surgery was when they told me that I'd have to get, that the tumor was eating up my shoulder bone, like literally eating it up. And it was getting smaller and weaker. And they told me I had to get a prosthesis implant, which is like, it's not a prosthetic, but it's like a replacement bone for my shoulder. And they had ordered everything. They told me the date of my surgery. I remember I had to get all prepped for that. It was in December. It was towards the end of the school year. I missed all of December because of my surgery and my recovery. It was on December 2nd, and I remember my friends would say bye to me to give me gifts and everything. And just that, having to leave and not see my friends for like a whole month, plus the month after January, half of January, it's pretty weird. And like, I felt lonely a lot of times not having my friends there. I dealt with it like, oh, I'm almost done, so it's not that much left. Might as well fight through the rest of it. And the day I had my surgery, everybody went. My mom, my dad. I remember my uncle going because I asked him to go. He's like one of my favorite uncles. And he went. My other family came and visited later on. And I wasn't able to eat anything, drink anything. Mainly because of the pain meds I was on. I just throw it up right away. The hardest, I've said this like a lot of times, but just having cancer in general was hard. Because I remember the first time I started losing my hair. That was what got to me the most, losing my hair. Because I remember one Christmas I grabbed part of my hair and it started falling out. And it just come out more and more and more. And I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to leave it all patchy and everything. And my dad asked me if I wanted to shave my head. And I just said yes because it wasn't going to grow back. And I'm like, okay, it's whatever. I think just going back to school, bald, no hair, no eyebrows. Everybody would stare at you differently. It's like awkward. Because it's just weird when you're there at school and everyone's looking at you differently. Because you're the same person, but you don't look the same. And I had the feeling they didn't want to ask me anything. But because of them not asking me anything, I felt more alone. And that no one wanted to talk to me because I was different. And because I had cancer. But, I don't know. Just losing my hair was a big deal to me. Because I'd always see in the movies, like cancer movies, I guess, people lose their hair, or on TV, people lose their hair. And when you actually lose your hair, it's just a big deal. Everyone looked at me differently, but they didn't treat me differently. Which once they got used to seeing me like that, I felt more comfortable without it. I'd wear a beanie. I wouldn't want to wear a wig because I thought a wig would look weird. They gave me like 3 wigs, but I didn't wear them. They're like girl wigs. I don't know why they gave me girl wigs. But I just wear a beanie all the time or a hat, and I'd get used to it. I think not having hair, another hard part of not having hair was the cold. Because when I lost my hair, it was during the winter, and it'd be really cold. But once my chemo was over, my hair started growing back. Everything started getting back to normal. Because all I ever wanted to be was just a normal kid, do normal activities, play soccer, go out with my friends, have sleepovers, play video games, hang out. What a normal, typical kid would do. It was 2014 when I finished my first chemo. And my mom asked me if I wanted to go to Brazil to see the World Cup. I remember saying yes. And I was so excited to go. We didn't see games, but just going to Brazil in general was just a great experience. But I was so grateful that my mom took me to Brazil. It was in June of 2014. We arrived in Brazil. I still didn't have my hair back, but Just going to Brazil was cool because I've never been to another country besides Mexico. And I remember the vibe there. It was just really good. Soccer, everything. Everybody's chanting. People from all over the world coming to see the World Cup. Just fun. I came back, started school again. I was at the point where I was becoming a normal kid again. I was getting into soccer. I was signing up for a new soccer team. Until October, I was running on my treadmill that my dad had bought me so I can get back in shape. And I remember swinging my arms like someone would run. And my left arm, I'd swing it and it'd feel weird. Like the back of my arm, my scapula, like it feels sharp when I'd pull back. And I knew that didn't feel normal. But after my chemo was done, I'd have to go to checkups constantly every month. And I had a checkup in October. When you do your checkups, they do blood tests, CAT scans, and MRIs. We went to the room. I remember we were in the room waiting for the doctor to show up. She came in with a serious face on, and I just had a bad feeling. I knew something was up again. She told me that I had cancer again, but in my scapula. But I didn't know I was going to lose my arm until they told me. But again, after that, after she told me I had cancer again, I had to start everything right away. My mom posted that I had cancer again. People were shocked that I had cancer. I was shocked that I had cancer again. Because this time I thought I was actually going to die from cancer, having cancer again. And once that happened, I was like, game over. I'm not going to be able to play soccer again. Never be able to play video games again. Never be able to play the guitar again. What happened was we went to take pictures before my chemo, before I lose my hair again. My friend's mom, she's a photographer. She took pictures for us. We took family pictures. I thought I was going to get normal treatment from the doctors, like chemotherapy. Like, oh, this should be easy. I went through it once. I beat it once. I'll beat it again. That day, I showed up at the hospital with a positive attitude. My nurses were there. My whole family was there being supportive. Until the doctors left. They left the room, and I remember they came in and asked for both of my parents if they'd walk out the door. And I didn't know what was going on because I was playing FIFA, just playing video games. And I kept thinking, I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on. I wonder what they're talking about. Until right before they walked in, I figured it out, or it just popped in my head. I'm gonna lose my arm. I don't know how I thought of it or where it came up, but they told me. It just came up in my head. I was gonna lose my arm. And I remember they walked in there. My mom was crying. My dad was crying. And my doctor told me that it wasn't going to be the same surgery or the same process. And that the tumor was so deep into my arm that they were going to have to amputate it. And I remember, again, I just started bawling, knowing I wasn't going to be able to do the things the same ever again. And I just was crying all night. I saw my sister cry for the first time. I actually was awake to see everybody cry this time. It made me cry even more because I knew everybody was sad for me. And I just hate that feeling when people feel bad for you. And you couldn't do anything about it because I know your family's there to help, but when you have cancer, it's not the same. People fight for you, but it's a fight where they can't do anything about it. You have to stay strong. You have to stay strong mentally to fight for them because they can't do anything about it. They can't make a wish and it goes away like that. They can't see a shooting star. They can't pay it off, the cancer. This is when I knew it was on my own, and I had to do it by myself. My uncle told me to. He always told me, asked me how was I able to keep through all of this and stay positive at the same time? Because, like he said, cancer is one of those things where your family can't fight for you. You have to fight on your own. It's on your own. At the time, I just had a lot of thoughts going through my head, like not playing soccer, playing video games, playing the guitar. And I just thought, wow, this is the end. My life is over. Till my doctors told me, came in. Literally after they told me I had 3 weeks until my surgery. And I had little time to think about it. And I was just ready for whatever was going to happen next. Because I already had cancer. I was like, what's next? Losing my leg, losing my other arm. And I don't know. That whole thought of losing your arm was just weird. Like, I couldn't believe it at first. But until I finally accepted the fact I was going to lose it. When one day the doctors came in with good news, I guess. Told me that I hadn't used my Make-A-Wish thing yet. And out of all that had happened, I finally got good news that I had anything. I had a wish, and I could wish for anything I wanted to. And I was like, what can I wish for before my surgery? Because I had a week to decide. I had a lot of ideas of what my wish was going to be, but because of the surgery being the next week, I was limited on what I could do. And that was when the new Xbox and PlayStation 4 came out. And I'm like, it'd be cool to have one of those. I asked for a shopping spree. I had a limit, $1,000, which was okay. And I remember asking for a PlayStation and a TV. But, which was weird. What was weird is because they said no to the PlayStation. And I wanted a PlayStation bad because all my friends had PlayStations. And they said because of the Xbox has to connect, the arm motion thing. I'm like, okay, whatever, it better work. Not knowing I wasn't ever going to use a Kinect ever again. Ended up selling it because I didn't need it. And yeah, I had an Xbox. After my surgery, or before my surgery, again, my whole family came. And more family came this time. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins from my mom's side, my cousins from my dad's side. They were all there, and we all took a picture together before I was sedated for my surgery. And that was the last time I remember having my arm. They drew on my arm or letters or whatever of which arm they were going to amputate so they wouldn't get the wrong one. I remember that was the last time with my arm. And I was sedated after that. I was knocked out cold. And I was moved to a different room after the surgery, the ICU. I had a tube in my throat. My throat was hurting because I had a tube in my throat to breathe. I woke up barely enough to see my whole family in my room still there. I remember seeing my cousin crying, his brother crying, my mom crying, my uncles crying. Everyone was crying. And I couldn't talk because the tube was in my throat. And I was barely awake enough to do anything. But that whole thought of seeing your whole family cry for you was crazy. Well, one, because I had cancer, and I think because I lost my arm. It was just the weird moment for me because I couldn't believe what was going on. That was when I knew that I was on my own and they couldn't do anything about it, and I had to fight for myself and for my family and my friends. That was when I knew I had to stay strong and I was going to get through it. After that day, I woke up, everyone was still there. They weren't crying anymore. They were just greeting me, seeing how I was. I was fine. I had 60 staples in my arm. I had a bandage over my arm too. And I had to get blood transfused a lot because I lost a lot of blood during the surgery. But they moved me back into the normal room. That big room, room 13 of the hospital floor. Which is a room I always asked for because, one, my mom always asked for because they had windows and it was a big room. And because they had a microwave. Yeah, and we could cook burritos and whatever. But yeah, we went into that room. It's big enough for the whole family to fit in there. And I had my new Xbox. And I was just playing video games all the time. And that's when they told me if I wanted to see a sporting Kansas City player. Or that was a sporting Kansas City player that wanted to meet me. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I love sporting Kansas City. Because I love soccer. His name was John Kempin. And we just started playing FIFA together. What was weird was having to learn how to play video games again, but in a totally different way. Like before I had my surgery, I asked him like, how am I gonna play video games? He said, oh, we'll get a one-arm controller. It'll be fine. And the next day, they brought me the one-arm controller. It wasn't compatible with my new Xbox. I just learned how to play on my own. Played with my chin. My mom would get mad because I had to cuff up my chin a lot playing video games too much. But I played FIFA with my new friend, John. And ever since then, we stayed in touch. After those weeks, I remember coming back from school. Coming back to school was the hardest part. Because it was a new semester. No one had talked in like 3 weeks or 2 weeks because they were on break. But me not talking to my friends for a whole 2 months, and coming back without an arm, that was really hard because no one would ever talk to me or say a word. And I'm like, wow, what happened to all my friends that were there for me? No one wants to talk to me. And I was getting really depressed at the time because I don't know what to do because no one was talking to me. I think because they were too afraid to ask questions. But again, things got back to normal slowly. But that just hurt in general. Like your friends not talking to you, asking you how you are. And I was just really depressing. And a hard time going through all of that. Because you have all these friends that are there for you. And just one day they don't talk to you. That was just really depressing for me. But things got back to normal again. I had lost my hair again, and I went through all my chemo again. I was looking forward to getting back in shape. Ever since I started going to the gym, I've been more positive. And I remember one time I went to the gym, some guy came up to me, told me that I'm really inspirational, like what I'm doing is good. And I didn't think anything of it at first because I didn't feel inspirational at all. Like, I'm just a normal kid. Well, why would you come up and say that, you stranger? And and he told me that. And I told my mom that some stranger came up and talked to me, told me I was inspirational. She's like, who? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, you are. It's like, you can make something out of yourself because you had cancer. And I'm like, really? Like what? And he's like, I don't know. Just explain your story and just do you. I'm like, okay, whatever that means. And just going to the gym, I'd get more and more compliments from people. And I started making friends at the gym. Not my age, but friends, older guys telling me that. Bigger guys telling me you're inspirational. You're really motivational too. Like, I see you when you work out and it makes me want to work out and push myself harder. I'm like, wow, really? I didn't even know that. And ever since I got more and more compliments from people, I was like, wow, I should start going to the gym more. Not for the compliments, but so I can get in shape and make myself better. Because the more and more people told me that I was inspirational, the more and more I felt I had to push myself harder to do it. Not for compliments, but just I knew I had to push harder for myself. like I said earlier when my family was crying for me. These people are over here telling me what I'm doing is good. I feel like everything I did wasn't enough for myself. Getting told I was inspirational wasn't enough for me. I just knew I had to push myself harder. I can be better than I am now. That whole thought of telling, when someone comes up to you and tells you what you're doing is good and inspirational, made me feel so good. And I just have a smile on my face. It's like positive, and just have positive attitude every time I went to the gym. Yeah, I think I'm more positive. I don't know what else there is to say. Follow me on Instagram, Oscar Alonso 01, and I don't have a name for my YouTube channel yet. But when I find it, when I post it, it'll probably be the same thing as my Instagram. Go subscribe and follow me on Instagram. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.